Well, Rick, I'm happy to have a chance to talk with you about this film because I have to tell you, I didn't sleep very well last night. Always, this happens to me. Prince of the City, I didn't sleep for 2 days, and I'm still holding that up to Sidney Lumet. But truly, I sit there and I am so disturbed by this violent world that we have, and yet I can't come to you as the filmmaker and say, you have made such a violent movie and you have upset me, because I have the feeling, Rick, I'm sure I'm right, that it's really more violent than what we see on the screen.
I think it is more violent. And one incident to me that really illustrated the violence viscerally was we were filming in the Reform School in St. Charles, and we were filming a scene in which we discovered that none of the kids can read. And in the middle of filming, a door opened behind us, and one of the Reform School officials came in and whispered to me, "We have to take the kid in the last row out of class." And I said, "Well, but we've just been, we've already established him, we're shooting." And he said, "You don't understand. His brother, who's 15, was just shot to death on the streets of Chicago." Bam. That's the real world. That's the real violence. That in the middle of a classroom, in a seemingly innocuous setting, violence comes in without ever seeing it. There it is. And it is a violent world. And our hope was that kids would respond to the film because the film was real, and yet the ending is, I think, very hopeful. And I think it says to kids that you can have the courage to say no to violence, that ultimately the film makes a very strong anti-violence statement. But no kid who is brought up today is going to sit through a film if it isn't real. So unless the film is strong and powerful and real in the beginning, then for those kids the ending isn't real either.
So Rick, are you prepared then to defend anything you have in the film, either that it happened or it could have happened?
Absolutely. I think it's a tough film, and we know that it will create some controversy. We know that there are people who will feel perhaps that the film is too violent, but I think those people aren't very aware then of what's going on in the streets today. And I think the film is done tastefully, even though even the people who have told us they feel the film is extremely strong and powerful, and perhaps too powerful for them, go on, in all of the previews we've had, go on to say they feel that the violence that we show is justifiable.
Being around these young men in the correctional institution, what did you pick up as far as your own awareness, enlightening you even more than you were?
Well, one thing we found, one of the big dilemmas is that a lot of the kids who are in reform school don't want to go home. They don't want to get out because in reform school they have 3 meals a day. They have authority figures who take the place of their parents, who they may or may not have on the streets. They have a roof over their heads. They have beds to sleep in. They have a certain kind of structure in their life. When they get out on the streets, unfortunately what happens is many of them go back to a very unstructured life. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. They don't have a family life. And so, strangely enough, often reform school looks very good to them, despite the problems of being incarcerated, despite the problems of being locked up. So it's one of the things that I discovered was how complicated the problem is. There aren't easy answers. It doesn't matter what your politics are. You can say, well, we need more money for programs, or well, we need to have tougher laws, or we need to try all these kids as adults. Some of those ideas are probably all good ideas, but no one idea is a solution. And I think the film stays away from trying to preach what the solution is. It also stays away from telling you that there's a one-to-one equivalent for any of the actions taken by the characters. It doesn't say these kids are in here because they're from broken homes, or these kids are in here because their parents are unemployed. But it says that there are a myriad of problems. They can't read, they do come from broken homes, there's a tremendous availability of guns. It's frightening. I mean, you can get a gun on the streets of almost any city in a matter of an hour if you have the money to buy it. So we hint at a lot of problems, but at the same time, it's a film that entertains. It's not just a social documentary.
It's a shocking statistic that 50% of the crimes are committed by underaged people. Of that group, do you have any idea, Rick, of how many are into crime because of drugs?
That's tough to say. Drugs are a problem that I think it's a problem that's tough to spot. You can't just say, oh, well. Again, I don't think it's a one-to-one easy answer. The question is not are all these kids who are committing crimes on drugs, but if those kids are on drugs, why are they on drugs? And a lot of the reason they're on drugs is for escapes, because they don't have a lot of the traditional escapes. I think, for me, one of the strongest changes we could make is to figure out how to get more people to learn how to read. And I think there's a very strong scene in the film in which Jim Moody, the actor who plays Gene Daniels, says, maybe if some of you could read, you wouldn't be here. And if you think of yourself as a moron, then you can't feel very good about yourself.
True. I thought that was a very powerful scene, and it's something that I don't believe we normally think about
Right.
in that context. As far as what we should do with juvenile offenders, have you come to any conclusions about that?
No, I think it's. I know that there are laws now that are up in a number of legislatures trying to pass. There are laws that would try juvenile offenders as adults in certain major crimes. And one of the things that we have to keep in mind, and we hoped we introduced that idea with the titles, with the baby pictures, is that these offenders are kids. And they start out as newborn babies, and they evolve through the years. And some of them evolve into terrific kids, and some of them evolve into bad kids. But they're all kids. And the problem is, what do you do with kids who are 11 and 12, who are handling handguns, who are killing people? And I don't know what the answer is. I don't think it does any good to try them as adults. On the other hand, it certainly doesn't do any good just to put them in a juvenile correctional facility.
Well, you have given us certainly a provocative film. I must say to you that, in my opinion, it's an extremely well done film. I enjoy that aspect of it very much. As far as enjoying the rest of it, that just isn't the word I could say, but certainly gives us something to think about, and hopefully in a direction that something can be done about one of society's major problems.
Well, that's one of the hopes of the film. Any film that I'm involved with, I hope entertains, but I also hope it makes you think.
Okay. Rick, nice having a chance to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Nice interview. Good interview. Some very good stuff there.
You want to go on standby and then we can set up a cutoff?
I'll give you some reactions and then we'll do questions.
And speed?
All right, questions? As violent as the picture is, I have the feeling that the real thing is even more violent. What is your hope for the people, particularly young people, who see this film? Do you have any thoughts about what should be done with juvenile offenders? Are you prepared to defend everything in the film, either that it did happen or it could happen? As far as your own awareness, what are some things you learned about juvenile criminals that you didn't know before? That should do it.